Walk into any temperate forest this weekend, find a fallen oak, a dying birch, or an old maple with a dead limb. Look closely at the bark. What you will see, if you know what to look for, is not decay. It is a pharmacy. 5 of the most studied mushrooms in modern medicine grow exclusively on dead or dying wood. Between them, they account for more peer-reviewed clinical research than every herbal supplement in the vitamin aisle combined. One of them was a drug reserved for the emperors of China. Another was exchanged for its weight in silver during Japan's feudal era. A third was officially entered into the Soviet Pharmacopoeia in 1955. A fourth has been the subject of multiple randomized controlled trials on human cognition, and the fifth has been approved as a cancer adjuvant drug for nearly 50 years, in a country most American doctors have never consulted. They grow on trees almost everyone walks past, and for most of the last century, we have walked past them without noticing. Welcome to Nature's Lost Vault. To understand why dead wood grows medicine, you have to understand what wood actually is. Roughly 90% of a tree trunk is lignocellulose, a fortress polymer that almost nothing on Earth can digest. Termites cannot. Bacteria struggle. Even fire needs help. But one group of organisms has solved it: wood-decomposing fungi. They deploy specialized enzymes that generate free radicals powerful enough to rip the wood's armor apart. Ecologists classify these fungi as keystone species. Without them, forests would bury themselves in their own debris within decades. Every autumn, as leaves fall and branches break, they go to work. And what they produce along the way, as a byproduct of breaking down a tree's defenses, is a collection of compounds the pharmaceutical industry has spent 40 years trying to replicate. Here are 5 of them, all growing on dead wood, all backed by real clinical research, and all waiting, right now, within a short walk of most of the people watching this. First is the cancer drug of Japan. In Chinese, it is called yunji. In Japanese, kawaratake. Its scientific name is Trametes versicolor, and it is almost certainly the most common medicinal mushroom in North America. It grows in overlapping fan-shaped clusters on fallen hardwood logs from Maine to Oregon, banded in concentric rings of brown, tan, blue, and gray that look precisely like the feathers of a wild turkey's tail. For 2,000 years, Chinese physicians brewed it as a tea for lung complaints, liver weakness, and what they called deficient vitality. Then, in 1965, a chemical engineer at Kureha Pharmaceutical in Japan noticed something strange in his village. A neighbor with stomach cancer had made a full recovery after drinking yunji tea. The engineer isolated the active compound and called it PSK. In 1977, the Japanese Ministry of Health officially approved it as an adjuvant cancer drug under the name Crestin. It has been prescribed alongside chemotherapy in Japan ever since. The science has held up. Polysaccharide K works by binding to a receptor on immune cells, the exact same receptor that cancer cells exploit to evade detection. In effect, the mushroom gives the human immune system a map of what it is supposed to be looking for. In 2012, the Food and Drug Administration granted investigational new drug approval for a clinical trial at Bastia University, co-funded by the National Institutes of Health, after legendary mycologist Paul Stamets' own mother used turkey tail during her stage 4 breast cancer treatment and made a full recovery. Turkey tail does not grow in the ground. It grows above it, on dead hardwood, which means it is clean from soil contaminants. Its underside is covered in tiny pores, not gills. That is the identification key. Every temperate forest in North America has it. You have almost certainly walked past it today. Next is the mushroom of the emperors. In the oldest surviving pharmacopoeia in Chinese history, the Shen Nong Ben Chao Jing, compiled around the year 200, Medical substances are ranked in 3 tiers. At the very top of the superior class is lingji, meaning spirit plant. In Japanese, it is called reishi. Unlike turkey tail, wild reishi is rare. It grows on dead or dying hardwoods in humid mountainous regions. For most of Chinese history, it was so scarce that a peasant might go an entire lifetime without seeing one. It was reserved exclusively for emperors. The Forbidden City in Beijing contains reishi motifs carved into railings and doorways, and a famous 16th century silk painting by Qu Yang depicts it as a gift to the Queen Mother of the West, one of the most revered figures in Chinese mythology. What the emperors were after was not flavor. Reishi is bitter, woody, and barely edible. It was brewed as a long simmered tea, sometimes for hours. Modern analysis reveals exactly why they bothered. Reishi contains over 400 distinct bioactive compounds, including a class of triterpenes structurally similar to steroid hormones. It also contains polysaccharides that stimulate the body's regulatory T cells. In 1973, Chinese researchers isolated a reishi polysaccharide and developed it into an injectable drug, approved by the Chinese Food and Drug Administration in 2000. It has been prescribed for over 40 years for neurological muscle disorders, and it remains one of the few non-hormonal treatments for certain forms of muscular dystrophy. It cannot be patented. Wild reishi has been freely pollinating dead hardwoods for millions of years. And today, you can buy reishi plug spawn online for $20, inoculate an oak log in your backyard, and within 12 months, you will have the exact same mushroom the Chinese emperors paid fortunes for. Then there is the mushroom that grows neurons. Picture a frozen waterfall hanging from the side of a beech tree. White, cascading, soft like a long-haired dog. That is lion's mane. In Japan, it is called Yamabushitake, the mountain monk mushroom, because its cascading spines resembled the ceremonial robes of Buddhist ascetics who meditated under waterfalls for hours at a time. In parts of Asia, it has been used for over 1,000 years for stomach complaints and for what traditional texts vaguely described as feeding the brain. That last claim was considered pure folklore until 1991, when a Japanese chemist named Hirokazu Kawagishi isolated 2 classes of compounds from lion's mane. He called them hericanones and erinakines. What Kawagishi discovered was that these compounds do something almost no natural substance does. They cross the blood-brain barrier and stimulate the synthesis of nerve growth factor, a protein the brain requires to maintain and repair neurons throughout life. Age-related decline in this protein is one of the core drivers of memory loss and cognitive fog. In 2009, researchers in Japan conducted a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. 30 adults between the ages of 50 and 80, all diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, were given either lion's mane powder or a placebo for 16 weeks. At every single assessment point, the lion's mane group scored significantly higher on dementia scales. The improvement was cumulative, and when the trial ended, cognitive scores declined back toward placebo levels within 4 weeks. Lion's mane is also one of the most beginner-friendly mushrooms to cultivate. All you need are an oak log, a drill, a handful of spawn, and a shaded spot in the yard. Within a year, it fruits. The texture when cooked is startlingly close to crab meat. Further north is the Cancer polypore of the birch forests. In the frigid boreal forests that ring the northern hemisphere, birch trees sometimes develop what looks like a charred, burnt wound on their trunks. It is not a burn. It is a living fungus called chaga. Unlike the others on this list, chaga is not a true fruiting body. It is a dense mass of fungal mycelium reinforced with melanin, the exact same pigment that darkens human skin. Cut into it, and the inside is rust orange, soft and corky. The Khanty people of western Siberia have used chaga for centuries, simmering it into a dark, bitter tea to survive the long winters. In Norwegian, its name translates directly to cancer polypore, a folk observation made long before anyone had tested it in a laboratory. In Russia, it was known simply as a gift from God. In 1951, the Soviet Academy of Sciences Komarov Botanical Institute began studying chaga in earnest. 4 years later, in 1955, the USSR Ministry of Health officially added it to the Soviet Pharmacopoeia under the name befunginum, a recognized therapeutic substance. Western awareness finally arrived in 1968 when the exiled Russian novelist Solzhenitsyn, a survivor of the Soviet Gulag system, published Cancer Ward. He wrote of peasants who saved money by brewing chaga instead of tea, and who, according to the country doctor treating them, never seemed to develop cancer at all. Modern chemistry has offered a possible explanation. Chaga absorbs betulin and betulinic acid from its birch tree host. Betulinic acid has been shown in multiple cell line studies to induce mitochondrial apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, specifically in cancer cells. It also contains one of the highest antioxidant concentrations ever measured in a food source. One caution: chaga is slow-growing. A wild conch can take 20 years to mature on a living birch. Harvest only what you need. Never take all of it. Leave some for the tree and some for the next forager. Finally, there is the dancing mushroom. At the base of old oaks in the forests of the northeastern United States, Japan, and northern China, there grows a mushroom so large it can weigh 50 pounds. Its English name is hen of the woods, because the overlapping grey fronds resemble a nesting hen. But its Japanese name is Maitake, the dancing mushroom, because foragers who found one were said to dance with joy. That reaction was not exaggerated. During Japan's feudal era, Maitake was so prized that regional lords, the daimyo, traded it to the shogun for its literal weight in silver. A single large Maitake could fund a family for a year, and because it is perennial, a Maitake that fruits at the base of an old oak will return to the exact same spot for decades. In 1984, a Japanese pharmacologist named Hiroaki Nanba isolated a specific polysaccharide fraction from Maitake called D fraction. In 2009, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York, one of the top oncology centers in the world, conducted a human trial of Maitake D fraction in postmenopausal breast cancer patients. The results, published by Dr. Gary Deng and his colleagues in the Journal of Cancer Research and Clinical Oncology, showed a clear immunomodulatory effect. Maitake both stimulated and regulated the immune system, a dual effect that has continued to fascinate oncologists. Maitake also lowers blood sugar. A 2001 clinical observation in diabetic patients showed a measurable hypoglycemic response after eating it. It is one of the only mushrooms on this list that is equally at home on a dinner plate and in a pharmacology journal. When sorted in butter, it tastes like the richest thing the forest has ever produced. 5 mushrooms, 5 forests, 5 traditions that arrived at similar conclusions independently, separated by oceans, languages, and millennia. The Chinese physicians who called Reishi the spirit plant. The Japanese foragers who danced when they found Maitake. The Siberians who simmered chaga through the dark winters. The Buddhist monks who ate lion's mane and sat in meditation. And the American settlers who walked past turkey tail for 300 years without knowing what Japanese oncologists would later prove. These are not lab-made supplements. They are wild organisms doing what they have always done, turning dead wood back into life. Producing compounds the pharmaceutical industry has spent 4 decades trying and failing to synthesize more cheaply than a log can grow them. The knowledge was never lost. It was just scattered, written in the bark of every dead tree in every temperate forest on Earth, waiting for anyone curious enough to look. If you want to start small. A mature oak or maple log cut in winter, a handful of plug spawn, a shaded corner of a yard. Within a few years you will have lion's mane, turkey tail, or reishi growing as consistently as tomatoes. No fertilizer, no irrigation, no permit, just wood, water, and time. The forest has been making medicine for 300 million years. We only started writing it down 2,000 years ago. We forgot it in the last 100 years. And we are only just beginning to remember. The free pharmacy was never locked. It was just growing on the other side of the bark. If this vault changed how you see the forest, do not let this knowledge disappear again. Subscribe to Nature's Lost Vault and hit the notification bell. Every like and every share bypasses the algorithm to preserve what the modern world ignored. The next vault opens soon.